So I'm still in 4.5 star territory, but this is obviously 4.5 is near perfect. At number 15, I have the Healing Game. Uh, and there's a deluxe version of this. It's just as interesting. It's got a whole
It's better.
second disc. Yeah, it's fantastic. And the horns, well, the songwriting is the best thing. I mean, Rough God Goes Riding and I'm spacing out the rest of the titles, but the title track, of course, great songs. I think that he was in his element on this album, 1997, but the horns are great. And you mentioned Brian Kennedy before. He's fantastic on this album. I think this is his probably his best probably his best album with Van. And they do that thing where they do this call and response.
Hmm.
It's kind of cliche now for Morrison. He does it on lots of albums, but this is where they kind of perfected that, and I enjoy it. I think the Healing Game, great album cover. Um, and Rough God Goes Riding is an interesting song because he left Ireland in 1970 because of the skirmishes there. And then all these years later, he writes a song about what's going on in Ireland. And he was not a topical songwriter generally. But I find Rough Guide Goes Riding to be a really emotional song. I love it. And great sound on this album. Number 14, you mentioned Live at Orange Field. Stellar recording. If this was a boot, you'd be creaming your jeans over this, right?
It's not, and I did.
Yeah.
Cindy said,
It's,
"What's wrong with you?" I said, "It's the most sexually excited I've been in 20 years." But yeah,
okay. But I mean, it's great.
just
And
kidding, Cindy, if you're watching this.
the song selection, of course, he does the song Orange Field at Orange
Yes,
Field. Orange Field, by
right.
the way, was his grade school or high school?
It was his middle school. Yeah.
Middle school. So he goes back to where he grew up. He does this album. It's just fantastic. And the performances, there's a great reading of Moondance on here. There's a great reading of Got to Go Back that I love. It's a faster tempo, but it's really good, and it's just a treat. And I listened to this album and I instantly liked it. And speaking of Got to Go Back, my number 13 is the album that contained that song, No Guru, No Method, No Teacher. And we're still 4.5 stars, but it's a great album. We're starting to kiss 5 star territory here. I love Got to Go Back, In the Garden, Ivory Tower, Here Comes the Night. Not quite a perfect album, but pretty darn close to it. 1986. And In the Garden is one of his most popular live tracks. And that's a remarkable song. So, yeah, just great 80s. And then a notch above that, and I could have put these in the other order. I have Beautiful Vision. Um, these to me are neck and neck, No Guru and Beautiful Vision. Um, this album, All Music gave it 3 stars. I don't understand that. I have it at 4.5. It's got a really nice flow and sequence. So I was talking about maybe Hard Nosed the Highway. Like you were saying, you could have taken some of those outtakes from Philosopher's Stone. This one, Beautiful Vision, it's just good all the way through. Um, it's another one of those kind of keyboard based albums. And as you mentioned, Scandinavia, one of his absolute best instrumentals, if not his best. And then this has Cleaning Windows on it, which interestingly, I didn't realize for a long time has Mark Knopfler on guitar. And they tried to work together, but it didn't. Van was unsatisfied. So it was interesting when they reunited on one of the duets albums. Uh, but I love the songs on Beautiful Vision. You already mentioned them. They're live favorites, Dweller on the Threshold and Van Low Stairway. And Yeah, all these great songs. And at number 11, I have Tupelo Honey. My favorite
Okay.
songs are Wild Night, Tupelo Honey, and Moonshine Whiskey. I mean, I have this. This is just outside the top 10. It's number 11, 4.5 stars. I love it. I'll tell you what would make this a 5-star album, though, is if the outtake had been included. Do you know what the outtake was from this album?
What was that?
Listen to the Lion.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he bumped it at the last minute for a song. I can't even remember what it is now, but it's not nearly as good as Listen to the Lion. If that had been on here, I think we'd have a 5-star album because that would have put it over the top. Um, I have a note here that I never shared with you, but the drummer on 7 of these tracks, not the title track, but the drummer on 7 of these tracks, Rick Schlosser, who also played on the first 2 tracks of St. Dominic's Preview, Jackie Wilson and Gypsy, is a friend of mine who lives here in San Miguel de Allende.
Oh really?
Yeah, he retired here and I've seen him play and I got to, a Facebook friend. I mean, not socializing friend, but he and I have communicated a couple times. We had a mutual friend who was dying and we were talking about him and I tipped him off that his friend was sick and he went to visit him and we've been friendly and so I just thought you'd be interested to know that the drummer on most of Tupelo Honey lives here and is a friend of mine.
Cool. You thought I'd forgotten all the recent Van Morrison stuff, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, Van Morrison live at Orange Field, 24 recorded in 2014 and just released last year. Uh, all the younguns who like Van Morrison have been saying, "Oh, it's the best Van Morrison live album ever." No, it's not. It's too late to stop now. It's the best Van Morrison live album ever, but it is a fantastic Van Morrison live album, and it is great in every respect. His voice is amazing. I couldn't believe that he. I mean, Gene, you said that his voice is still good. Yes, it is, but it's not what it used to be. But here, it's what it used to be. Okay, so I just love that album, Live at Orange Field. It's like Van still has it in him. Um, Poetic Champions Compose. I rated it much higher than you did. Um, it's a romantic album in a lot of ways, but not as sweet or as pretty of an album as Avalon Sunset. But it's got several instrumentals that are quite good. I mean, if the instrumentals on the instrumental album were as good as this, Allow Me and Spanish Steps, that
Mhm.
would be fantastic. Um, Did You Get Healed is a really strong one. Um, as you pointed out, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Queen of the Slipstream is beautiful. Um, and basically, just every song, I love every song on there. Okay, so that's Poetic Champions Compose. Oh, here we go. Here we go. A Sense of Wonder. And I would say everything, I would second everything you have to say about it. I love the song A Sense of Wonder. Um, oh, didn't I come to give you a sense of wonder? Didn't I come to lift your fiery vision bright? That's Van, that's Van's raison d'etre. You know, but there are a couple songs on it that keep it from being in my absolute favorites. But still, number 16 out of 56 and a 5-star album, it's not bad.
So one thing I noticed that, and this isn't a comment on your selections, but our rating system. So you started at 0 stars and I
Mm-hmm.
started at 1.5, and you were slow to work your way up. But then, interestingly enough, you got into 5-star territory before I did.
And the reason for that has to do with something you said, that of all the people you know, I may like Van Morrison more than anyone. I mean, when I say Van Morrison could gargle the phone book and I would love it, I mean, to choose only 20 Van Morrison albums that are not 5 stars, I feel sinful. I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like I should go to mass and confess, you know. Um, it's like, um, forgive me, Saint Van, for I have not put more of your albums as 5 stars. But yeah, that's right. I mean, I could easily, if I were being totally subjective, Gene, I could
Hmm.
have put the first half at 5 stars. I could
Okay.
have put I could have put 28 of the albums at 5 stars. And this is the Philosopher's Stone.
Okay.
I already said that, right? No, I didn't. And that's because if you look at the Philosopher's Stone and you look at the first disc of the Philosopher's Stone, Laughing in the Wind, Madame Joy is amazing. Contemplation Rose is amazing. Cry for Sleep. All of these songs are they just blow me away. And if they were added to Hard Nose the Highway, they would have made Hard Nose the Highway a perfect 5.
All right. Welcome back. We had a small issue, and so now we're moving into the top 10. But
I'm
before,
numerically dyslexic, by the way.
what's that?
That's what our small issue is. I'm numerically dyslexic.
Oh, okay.
There's
And
a
we
number for
had
that. There's a name for that, but I'm terrible with numbers.
okay. We had we told you up front that we would talk about our favorite bootleg, which was a request that Jim had made. And I think I'm going to reverse the order on this and let Jim talk about his bootleg first because it was his idea, and then and I already know what that's going to be, so I picked a different one on purpose, just for a variety. I didn't want to pick the same one as him. You want to talk about your favorite bootleg?
Yes. There's several reasons why this album rates so high. I could say it was because it was the year my daughter was born. I could say that it was because it's such a great CD, but it's fantastic. Van Morrison has an affinity for the MJF, the Montreux Jazz Festival. He almost always, except maybe in 1974, almost everything from 1979 forward, and he's done about 10 Montreux Jazz Festival recordings. And he's always at the top of his game. I mean, even for Van, he's at the top of his game. So the album that I found, and I loved it from the moment I heard it. And it is not only my favorite bootleg, but it is my second or third, how you count, it's too late to stop now. Second or third favorite Van Morrison live album. Okay. Um, and it is an album I would never be without. I have recorded copies of it for lots of people, but you can also find it easily. You can get the whole thing online on YouTube. It's available there. And it's live in Montreux, 1990. And it's just the set list is amazing. Yes, it starts out a little bit corny with Georgie Fame singing "Yeah, Yeah,"
Mhm.
but as soon as that is done, and even that, I mean, I've grown to love that. But if I had to leave something out of it, um, I would, take that off because it's not Van. But here we go here with Live in Montreux. Okay, so Van goes with a fairly recent song, Did You Get Healed? And then he goes back to It's All in the Game. And then a couple early songs that he would sometimes do cursory versions of on other bootlegs. But here comes the night, which in some ways is a better, more accurate version of Here Comes the Night than the one on It's Too Late to Stop Now. And then he does Baby Please Don't Go. The only song that he doesn't do from that period is Gloria. And then Fantastic Domino, Jackie Wilson said, Sweet Thing. Oh my God. It's actually Sweet Thing slash Astral Weeks. Okay. He starts on Sweet Thing and then he moves into Astral Weeks and makes it into an 8.5 minute song. And when Van in 1990 is singing, um, and I will never grow so old again. I'm getting chills just thinking about it now. He's so perfect. Then he does Star of the County Down, and Northern Muse, When Heart Is Open, Whenever God Shines His Light. And then I mentioned earlier when we talked about Common One that there's a better version of Summertime in England. This 13-minute version of Summertime in England is so good. And his his saxophonist Richie Buckley echoes Van for a while. And Van sings first, and Richie Buckley, and then Van tries to mess him up by going doodly doodly doodly, and Richie Buckley doodly doodly doodly, and he stays with it the whole time, and it's just fantastic. And then Caravan, which is, well, I'll just say it's one of my favorite Van Morrison songs, Nudge Nudge Wink Wink. Um, and then it goes to a transcendent in the garden with as Van walks off the stage, Georgie Fame is saying, "Give it up for Van Morrison. God bless Van Morrison." And I say, "Amen." So this is, I mean, I would want this more than any of my other than my 11 through 20. If I had to give up a Van Morrison album, I would only keep the 1 through 10 before I would give up this.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got a copy of it, thanks to you. I don't know if you remember that, but you once gave me a
Yes, I
copy of
do.
this. So I've got that in my collection. And so I'm going with a different pick. Because like I say, I did know that you were going to pick that. And maybe this is because I like the video, which is easy to see on YouTube. But I'm going to go with the 1999 Christmas special at Rock Palast.
Okay.
Van Morrison on vocals, harmonica, guitar, sax, Johnny Scott guitar, Liam Bradley percussion, Ralph Salmons drums, Jeff Dunn drums, John Savannah keyboards, Nicky Scott bass. And then here's where it gets really good. Katie Kassoon on backing vocals, Pee Wee Ellis on saxes and flute, Matt Holland on trumpet and flugelhorn, if I can say that. And the guest artists are Fred Wesley on trombone from the James Brown Band and Candy Dulfer on alto sax. And yeah, I just adore this performance. Let me give you the song list on here.
What was the year? What year was it?
99, December 99. So it was after we saw him.
Right. And it was recorded in Lorelei.
I think so. Yeah, in Germany.
Yeah, I've got it on a bootleg called "A Legend in Lorelei."
The
Are you
video is just with Pee Wee and Fred, both being James Brown alumni, joined with Candy Dulfer. The horns are just wonderful. But here's the set list. Well, there's an intro before he walks on, but then when Van walks on, it's Jackie Wilson said, "These Dreams of You," which is not frequently performed, Rain Check, Moon Dance / My Funny Valentine, Rough God Goes Riding, Give Me a Kiss, That's Life, the Frank Sinatra song, Naked in the Jungle. That's on Philosopher's Stone, right?
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, Satisfied, which the horns just wonderful. Georgia on My Mind, Call Me Up in Dreamland, Summertime in England, then a medley, See Me Through the Burning Ground, Soldier of Fortune, and the Burning Ground Again, and Have I Told You Lately? So it's a wonderful,
Great track list.
yeah, I just love watching that video. So it's great. Now in order to X out of here, I got to move my
Go right ahead.
ring light. This, by the way, is a ring light. You were asking what that was. And I just clip it on my thing here.
You are such a high-tech kind of guy.
Oh, they're cheap. They're about 25 bucks. So anyway, we'll go ahead and do the top 10 now.
All right.
You ready? And
I am.
we'll take them one at a time. So My number 10, and I'm still at 4.5 stars. I'm a little stingier with the 5 stars, but I have his band in the street choir.
Okay.
And I do agree with what you say. There is this section in here. I can remember two of the three songs. So let me pull that up so I can get this accurate. But there's a lull in this album, and I absolutely agree with you. In fact, there's even a case of almost outright plagiarism. Um, on his band and the street choir, you have this little segment on side two, Virgo Clowns, Gypsy Queen, and Sweet Janine or Jenny,
Hmm.
Sweet Janny, which I think the album sags right there. Virgo Clowns is my least favorite song. Gypsy Queen is a total ripoff of Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions. It's all right. It's almost note for note the same. But the rest of this album is wonderful. It just has that little sag. I've got in my notes here that Jack Schroer on sax and John Platania on guitar are absolutely wonderful. This is not, this is number 10. It's not my favorite album, but with the possible exception of the live album, this is as good as Jack Schroer's ever sounded. And then on Crazy Face, you mentioned that song. I agree with you that it's a little bit weak, but the interesting thing about that song is Van plays the sax. And I love his sax on Crazy Face. But my favorite songs are, besides Domino, I absolutely love I'll Be Your Lover Too. That's sort of my warm love. That's just a sensitive romantic ballad that I love. And then I love the title track, Street Choir. So number 10, I've got his band in the street choir.
Okay. My number 10 is The Healing Game, which is, I believe, in my top 10, it is the latest of the albums there. Okay. Um, and it came out just before The Philosopher's Stone, but it's a 1997 album. I just love The Healing Game. When it came out is when I was teaching, and I got copies for my friends because it was just so good. And then came out as a deluxe edition, which had some extra tracks, um, and basically some different versions and some new tracks. Uh, and so basically, it's three discs. It was the original one with a couple extra tracks. Then it was the bonus tracks and remaking. I'll go over those quickly. You've got Rough God Goes Riding, um, and then you have Fire in the Belly, The
Mhm.
Weight, which I love, but I can't keep thinking about the fact that Van Morrison was a bit overweight at the time, and he's if I could only lose this weight. Um, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, based on the Wind in the Willows. Um, Burning Ground. Oh man, there have been several bootlegs called Burning Ground because Van Morris. I still don't know what he's talking about when he says dump the jute, take the jute and dump it on the burning ground. My friend Art Smith said to me, "What the hell is a jute?" I don't know. Van Morrison wants to dump it on the burning ground. Sometimes we cry. Is Van doing um, street corner doo wop? The Healing Game. That's another street corner doo wop, and it's one of Van's greatest songs. Okay, so those are the first 10. Also, coming out on the bonus version, Full Force Gale 96, um, and St. Dominic's Preview 96. If you like Van and you haven't heard that, you must listen to that. It is Van doing an acoustic version of St. Dominic's Preview for a thing about traditional Irish music called Sult, S-U-L-T. And it's just St. Dominic's Preview acoustic or 96. So those in itself put it in my top 10. But even on top of that is where is the here we go. Healing Game Deluxe Edition Disc 3. I said, and I will stick by this, that aside from the 2014 live thing, which that could have been a Montreux show, Van is best at Montreux. And he's just at the, again, excellent. I use this phrase, top of his game a lot. Georgie Fame is with him. Starts off with Rough God Goes Riding. And when Van says, and I'm moaning like a dog in the manger, and Georgie Fame goes, and it's just, and it's Foreign Window, Tore Down a la Rambo. You don't hear that very often. Um, Gene, if you haven't heard this, I would really suggest you check it out. It's got,
I've listened
I'm
to
not,
it.
okay. What do you think of it?
Love it.
Yeah. I'm not feeling it anymore, which basically is, you know, it's just a great song from a more up tempo version of the one from Hymns to the Silence.
Mm.
Uh, and then he does this great um, coupling of Tupelo Honey with the song that is a rewrite of it. Why must I always explain? Now, I'm embarrassed that I didn't pick up that "Why Must I Always Explain" is basically a rewrite of Tupelo Honey. When the album first came out and I was playing it for my father-in-law, he said, "This is Tupelo Honey." And I go, "God damn, you're right." Um, and then later on some live albums, Van said, here's a song. It used to go like this," and he sang Tupelo Honey, and now it goes like this. And he
Mm.
would do "Why Must I Always Explain?" The Healing Game, of course, and then a medley of "See Me Through," "Soldier of Fortune," and Sly Stone's "Thank You for letting me be myself again." And it's just, this is like right up there with the Montreux 1990. Why? Because it's Montreux, and Van is best at Montreux. And the fact that he should release that entire thing with the Healing Game. This was during the time Van was being generous with his re-releases. Van's he's an interesting guy. He'll be super generous and release albums with bonus tracks, and then he'll recall all of those.
Yeah.
Go, figure it out. Okay, so that was my that was, I know I went to talk a lot about that, but that's the Healing Game, and part of the reason it's so high. Probably if I had if it was before this was released, I probably would have had it lower. I probably would have had it below Tupelo Honey, but that pushes it up. So that's my number
Okay.
10.
My number nine, and
Number
I
9.
don't know why I have this. This is the last of my 4.5 star albums, and it could easily be five. But this is where I've got the recently released, by that I mean 9 years ago. It's Too Late to Stop Now, volumes 2, 3, and 4. Um, this is kind of a revelation. It made me, I mean, I already knew this, but it really reinforced how Van performs differently every night, especially back then. And the Caledonia Soul Orchestra is just so responsive to him. It's a marvel to listen to these shows and the way they're grouped at venues now, because It's Too Late to Stop Now was taken from several different venues. But this one, they group everything on discs 2, 3, and 4. It was released as a part of a DVD CD package, very expensive, but kindly they put it up on Spotify so that I could listen to it without going broke. And my favorite disc is 4, which is at the Rainbow in London. Um, this version of Listen to the Lion, holy smokes. Um, but there's some songs on here I'd never heard him do before. Um, and I'm not going to go through the track list because it's way too many. But he does some covers that, yeah, were new to me and great. It's just great. It's just great fun to listen to him do these songs at different venues and hear the way he treats them differently night to night. Yeah, I never listened to this album until this project. I'd never heard it before, and it was a revelation. So that's number 9 for me. It's Too Late to Stop Now, volumes 2, 3, and 4.
Number nine.
Yes.
Number nine. I don't know if you heard that or not. Um, okay. My number nine is Irish Heartbeat.
Okay.
And for many of the same reasons that you put, but I put it even higher because it's Irish and it's the Chieftains and it's Paddy Maloney. And it's great Irish songs that I love, including two Van Morrison Irish songs that I love. But what really makes this album totally indispensable is Raglan Road, which is actually not a true traditional Irish song. It's based on a 20th century Irish poem. And then it was set to music. And Paddy Maloney actually rearranges it a bit. But Cindy calls it, and she's totally right about this. This is the greatest Van Morrison song that Van Morrison never wrote.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, if anybody who loves Van Morrison heard this, they would swear it's one of his songs. And have you ever seen Wings of Desire, the Wim Wenders movie?
Long time ago.
Remember, it's about an angel who falls in love with a mortal woman and he's watching her and all of this. And basically, so he can love her, he gives up his wings and he's no longer an angel.
Hmm.
Well, um, when the angel woos the clay, he loses his wings at the dawn of the day.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sure that's what inspired Wings of Desire. It was also made into that movie with it was a Hollywood movie with yeah, anyway, there was a Hollywood remake of it, which was good, but not as good. Okay, so that is Irish Heartbeat to me. And it when my first Cairn Terrier, Muffin, who you knew, Gene,
Hmm.
when she died, I was devastated. Okay, I was truly devastated. And that was in 1988. And I was, uh, and so after work, which I took off early from work because I just couldn't stand it, I went to the Dubliner, and there was a singer that was singing there, and he asked if there were any requests. Okay, and I had I said, "Can you sing Carrick Fergus?" And he did. And I started crying. I mean, everyone was looking at it, bawling into my beer, into my Guinness.
That's a
When he
country
says,
western song, by the way.
bawling into my beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not Carrick Fergus, but yeah, crying in, yeah. And so I said, can you do Carrick Fergus? And uh, and what he sings, I'm drunk today and I'm rarely sober.
Mhm.
I mean, it's, come all ye young men and lay me down. It's about a man who's ready to die. And it's Brian Ferry has done it. A lot of great artists have done it, but nobody has done it as well as Van. Um, what's his name? Brian Kennedy has also done it. Uh, but it's just so you put Carrick Fergus and Raglan Road, and this can't be any lower than my top 10.
Okay. Well, I knew you'd have that, or I suspected you'd have that high. Number 8 for me, and you haven't talked about this album yet, is is an album that I struggled with for a few years. It's Weed and Fleece. It's an unusual album. It's kind of Astro Weeks Part 2 in a certain sense. It's more of a sweet than a songs album. I mention that because when we do our top 25 songs, this is kind of underrepresented, but it doesn't mean I don't love the album. It plays for me more as a whole. I like the whole thing. The lyrics are some of them are some are strange and some are straightforward. The song titles are just so bizarre, and maybe that's what put me off for a long time. Let me bring up some of these song titles because they're just um, so strange. You have songs called Lyndon Arden Stole the Highlights. Who was that masked man? You don't pull no punches, but you don't push the river. Bulbs, cul-de-sac. Then you get a song like Country Fair, which is, a straightforward song title, but you have such strange titles on here. But this is a grower. This album just keeps growing on me over the years. And like I say, I like to listen to it as a whole. There were a couple songs that were done months later at a different session, and they do sound a little bit like they sound like they're from a different session, but that's a minor quibble. Um, I didn't mention this, but this is my first five-star album, Weed and Fleece.
Okay.
I think it's a perfect album. Um, he doesn't do a lot of these songs live, nor are they covered much by other artists because they're so unusual. And you've got these Western figures in here um Tonto and Geronimo and it's a weird album and it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work at all. If I were to describe this album on paper, yeah. Okay, I'm going to make a bunch of songs about Geronimo and Tonto and with weird song titles, blah, 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 and put a beautiful picture of me with Irish wolfhounds on the cover, and it'll work. Well, it does. It keeps climbing for me. I think years ago it would have been down at 25 or something on my list, but it's moved up to number 8. My first five-star album, Weed Fleece. Love it. Your turn.
All right. My number 8 is No Guru, No Method, No Teacher. All right. Uh, it's an album that has so many amazing songs on it that that kind of makes up for the slightly less than amazing songs on it because there may not every song may be 5 stars, but there are some songs that are 6 to 10 stars on there. Okay, um, including the original version of "In the Garden," and uh, then we've got the "Got to Go Back," and it's just a very much let's see, no guru, no method. Uh, it's just a really amazing album to me. Foreign Window, it's a great one. A Town Called Paradise, which he began to incorporate into other songs when he would do stuff live. But he has the great line, "We gonna get that squealing feeling." Yeah, squealing feeling, got it. And then Tiernanog, which is a
Oh yeah.
yeah, Tiernanog is an Irish heaven. Okay. And he's singing about to his lover, we're going to be again together again sometime in another lifetime in Tiernanog.
Mm.
So it's a fantastic album that I would never want to be without. That's my number 8.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, great album. At number 7, we're getting there now. I have an album you mentioned that I have higher than you. Common One,
Hmm.
five
Okay.
stars. This is where R&B meets spirituality. You said it well by saying it was right before that sort of new age and what I call keyboard dominated period of sort of slower tempo spirituals, which I love. I love that period. We both love it. We had different rankings. But Beautiful Vision, Inarticulate Speech of the Heart, Poetic Champions. Before that, you had Common One. Pee Wee is so dominant on here. the sax and everything. Yeah, Summertime in England, Wild Honey, Satisfied, all these really great songs on here. I think it's only like 5 songs because Summertime in England is so long. Um, All Music gave this 3 stars. A lot of people don't like this album, or I shouldn't say don't like it, but just think, yeah, that kind of thing. But me, Common One, fantastic from 1980. It's really on a cusp, like you talked about. It's a transitional album coming out of one period into another period, and we get the best of both worlds. Love it. That's my number 7 pick, Common One.
All right. So I told you I had it coming soon. My number 7 is Veed Fleece.
Mm.
And I had the same experience with it that you did, Gene. I liked it, but it never grabbed me until I grew a little older. You're absolutely
Mhm.
right. It's kind of like Astral Weeks, very, very Irish album. Um, and it has a song that is just, I, I can't get over it. It's, you don't, you, you don't pull no punches, but you don't push the river. And he says in the lyrics, he sings about Mare Baba and the Sisters of Mercy looking for the Veed Fleece. You know, Mayor Baba, how does that come into it? Um, Mayor, oh, he's Irish, Mayor Baba O'Reilly. Um, but anyway, it's a great song and it's just kind of gallops along. The only song that doesn't necessarily fit, but I still love it, is Bulbs, which is a little bit more up tempo. Um, but it ends with a great line, great Van Morrison line. After all, it's all showbiz.
Mm.
So and then after that, it gets more quiet and sweet, like you said. Each song kind of on the second side of the record moves into the next one. So Veed and Fleece is a beautiful album. The Irish Wolfhounds on the cover are are a great touch, although they're probably not really his. They probably were just, it was um, a staged thing, but
It's all
those are
show
huge
dogs.
dogs.
It's
Yeah,
all show
yeah.
dogs.
Um, it's all show dogs. Yeah. Um, uh, Lyndon Arden stole the highlight leads into Who Was That Masked Man? And you can wish on a toilet roll.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's a weird lyric.
yeah. And he
That's a
sings.
weird lyric.
I had to get past his vocal on it because a friend of mine said that he was singing like Curly of the Three Stooges.
Mhm.
Lonely. And and the whole time he sings that, but it's good. Okay, so that's my number 7.
Yeah, and maybe we should clarify for the viewers when we say it's kind of Astro Weeks Part Two or that kind of thing, we're talking about his stream of consciousness lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
This album doesn't necessarily always make sense, and that's okay. He's just doing stream of consciousness. All right, my number 6, 5 stars. I haven't mentioned this album yet. You mentioned it a long time ago. I have Live at the Grand Opera House, Belfast. And let me tell you why. You mentioned the backup singers. They're fantastic. Pee Wee Ellis, Mark Isham on trumpet, David Hayes on bass, Peter Van Hook on drums. It's just a great band. But I prefer a lot of these versions. So songs like Van Lowe's Stairway and Dweller on the Threshold and Rave on John Donne. I prefer the versions on this album. I think he was in top form. It's interesting. You said earlier, why don't I like this album more? Well, I do. I have it all the way up to number 6, which I think is probably surprising for a lot of people. But I have listened to this album as much as any Van Morrison album. When I went into this project, I was already thoroughly familiar with it. I talked about how albums like Hymns to the Silence revealed new things to me on as part of this project, but this album was cemented in my mind. And the only thing I really picked up from it that I hadn't noticed before was how great the organ is, the keyboards. I hadn't really noticed that before. On one song, they're almost churchy, but it works. And uh, the recording, fantastic. And his he does one of those yells that you talk about too. I wasn't going
Mhm.
to mention this, but he does one of those high pitched. I've got allergies right now, so I can't do it. But he just belts out a sound of joy on one of the songs, and it's great. And they do Cleaning Windows on here. Great set list. Number six, live at the Grand Opera House, Belfast, released in '84, recorded, I believe, in '83.
That's right. Okay, my number six is a personal favorite of mine. It's the last great Van album of the 70s. And I found something that at the end of a decade, Van makes a great album. He made Astral Weeks, you know, and he made Avalon Sunset. But here, it's Into the Music. Okay. This was his follow up to Wavelength. And everything that was wrong with Wavelength is not wrong with this. He's returning to a pastoral Irish kind of thing. Um, and his entire lyrical, I mean, his lyrics are great, but it's not the lyrics that make it so good. It is the singing. Um, on Into the Music, he has the Bright Side of the Road, Full Force Gale. Those are the
Mhm.
two hits, if you will. But
Mhm.
then Steppin' Out Queen, which there was an alternate Steppin' Out Queen Part Two that is 7 minutes long, and it goes really well after it. This is when Van was being generous about re-releasing these albums with bonus tracks. Um, and Troubadours. But what makes it so fantastic? And the healing has begun. God, I love that song. And the healing has begun. Basically, it is a rewrite of Madame George. It even has the violin going on the dun, 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 dun. And Madame George begins on the Cypress Avenue. And the opening of this is um, and the healing has on on the avenue again. Okay. Um, and but the thing about it is he stops singing at one point and he starts to talk to his girlfriend or the woman or the prostitute that he's brought to his house. I don't know who she is, but he starts talking to her about he wants to play the Muddy Waters record that he has, and he says if we could just sit here on the settee, um, you know. Um, but at that one point he goes, "Can't stand myself."
Yeah.
And, oh God, Van, did you just do a James Brown on a 1979 album? And yes, he does. And it's not self-conscious at all. He's just really feeling it.
Hmm.
Okay. And so that it's and the healing has begun is and we walk down the avenue again. Um, so there it is. That's and then Angelou is also good. Everything on there is good. There's a song where he almost sounds like a leprechaun, Rolling Hills, up on the rolling hills. Um, but great album, an album that I love forever and ever and ever.
Couldn't agree more. Nicely done. And I haven't mentioned it yet. So where is that going to place on mine?
1 through 5
Nope.
somewhere.
Well, number five is Into the Music.
Okay.
Um, I would also go to bat for It's All in the Game. You know what they're writing about.
Yes, yes. It's
One
a
of my,
cover, but it's still a great song.
yeah, though grafted with one of his own
His.
songs, right? And so that's kind
Yes.
of that grafting of songs is what I was talking about on the Hollywood Bowl album. Um, I don't have much to add to what you said, except one thing, which is more than any album, this is his violin album. Tony Marcus puts a sonic stamp on that album that is so wonderful. We already have Van's great singing that you were talking about, great band, and great songs, and just everything is great about this album. You know, 5 stars for me too. But then Tony Marcus's violin. So I went to do some research on her, and it is a woman. And she has hardly recorded. She has, you go to Discogs, and she has got very little credits. Though, you know what's interesting though? I have a friend here in town. I didn't even mention this. One of my best friends in town is a classical music violinist, and he played with the San Francisco Ballet Orchestra. And I was reading his credits on Discogs, and he mentioned that he had done many more. And I go, well, why aren't you on here? He said, because they were union gigs. I got paid under the table.
Huh.
So that's interesting. But, and one reason I'm surprised I didn't mention him is he was supposed to tour with Van Morrison. And he was rehearsing for a tour. And as Van often did, changed his mind. But he actually briefly sort of met Van. Van doesn't really talk to the session musicians. Um, but yeah, he was supposed to go on tour with Van Morrison. So maybe Tony Marcus did more, is my point. But here's what I did find. I wanted to talk about this, and if I have time to put it on the end of this video and not get copyright blocked, I will. Tony Marcus, about the only thing you can find on her is a video on YouTube of her at the age of 12 doing a comedy routine with Jack Benny on the Jack Benny Show. And they are playing dual violins, and she keeps upstaging him, which is hilarious for this cute 12-year-old girl. So I tried to do research. She's still alive. She still lives in the Bay Area, but she has hardly any credits to her name. But on this album, she is absolutely the icing on the cake. I love her violin. Number 5 into the music.
All right. I want to recommend something to you if you haven't seen it. You might be able to find it on YouTube. It used to be available. Van Morrison live in Ireland, which was a legitimate release for a while on uh, VHS. It was never released on DVD. When Van went back to America after his time, I went back from America to Ireland. He did 2 shows, one in Dublin, one in Belfast. And the Belfast show is amazing. And Tony Marcus is there. And it's so
Oh,
funny
yeah.
because she's weaving back and forth as she's playing, and she's like so much into it. She's like dancing along to it. And it's really good. So, that's well worth seeing. Okay, it's just Van Morrison live in Ireland, and if I can find the link, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I have it.
If
Well,
not,
I have it on audio cassette because
right,
I
I
dubbed
I
it from the
recorded.
video.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did. Yes, you did. But if you've seen it, then that's great. Um,
I don't
okay, so
remember.
that's your
Yeah.
my number five is something that I was going to place with my number four. I didn't know you were making it separate. I forgot. I missed your email, or I did a brain fart. But it's It's Too Late to Stop Now, volumes 2 through 4. To me, it is comes just after It's Too Late to Stop Now. It's more of what's wonderful about It's Too Late to Stop Now. The song selection, like you say, there's a few places, only a few, where I take, come on, put something different on there. But it's because it's a different shows. So I mean, and there's
Mhm.
different versions of the same song, but that's great. And I just I love it now because now I have Van Morrison uh, at his very best, and I mean that, at his very best, on 4 discs. Um, when I was just really getting to love Van Morrison at when I was a junior in high school.
Mhm.
So I mean that's really all I have to say about it. That's so good. It's just, oh, by the way, the version of Purple Heather that's on there is really really good
Mm,
though.
yeah. and I have more. I've only listened to it maybe two times, so because it's still a fairly new release.
It is, yeah.
Well, new by my standards. I'm not always quick. All right. My number four now is It's Too Late to Stop Now, period. The live album, the double live album from 74 of the 73 tour.
Amen.
Um, I'm turned on already. I love
Oh
the
yeah.
ad libs on this album. You know, this album famously has no studio overdubs. He wanted it to be warts and all, and that's what makes it great. Side four, incredible. That's the side I think of objectively as the best, Caravan and Cypress Avenue, and where he just stops the band, and that's where he ad libs. I'm turned on already, and says it's too late to stop now, but there are so many other great tracks on here. The covers are wonderful. So you have, I'm going off the top of my head now because I know the album so well. You have the Bobby Blue Bland. Is it Bobby Blue Bland that
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Ain't Nothing You Can Do?
Uh-huh.
And then you have, oh, the Ray Charles, I Believed in My Soul. Sonny Boy Williamson, Help Me. Bring Me My Nightshirt.
Bring me my morning gown.
I feel like laying down. And then there's the Muddy Waters. I Just Want to Make Love to You. And then, of course, Listen to the Lion and a really nice version, Warm Love. I, I, I like Warm Love and Wild Children on here a little bit better than Hard Nosed the Highway. This is a solid album all the way through, no weak spots. He does his little bubbles thing on here, some weird vocals. Um, it's just he's got this telepathic synergy with the Caledonia Soul Orchestra, which is Terry Adams on cello and a bunch of other people on violins and violas. And I think it's the only time he toured really with a string section that I know of. And they just watch him. I think even more than listen to him. And and everything is in a flow and dynamic, and it's a piece of magic. It's a piece of magic. And the fact that they took it from different venues and shows and dates, it plays like a single concert. And then the DVD of this that was only released more recently is fascinating to watch. I mean, on Cypress Avenue, there's a child walking across the stage and he's smoking a
That's his daughter,
cigarette.
Shanna.
That's Shanna.
Yeah, that's Shanna.
So she's walking on the stage. He's smoking a cigarette. I never saw the kicks before and that kind of thing. So it's just a revelation. Number four, It's Too Late to Stop Now. Not only is it 5 stars, but it's a perfect album.
I agree totally. This is how can it be improved? It can only be improved by adding volumes 2 through 4. Or
Right.
when Van re-released it with bonus tracks, he stingily put one bonus track on it, Brown Eyed Girl, um, just before Bring It On Home to Me. And so it's got Brown Eyed Girl. But it's got but it didn't need that. The last 3 songs, as you say, basically what are the final side of the vinyl, it's got Gloria in a very non-them style. It's like Van is doing his James Brown. We go, ow, just playing greasy. Good God. Just playing greasy. Good God. Um, and it's just such a good version. Then Caravan, um, Caravan is Caravan. And then Cypress Avenue, besides the it's turned on already, the where he says me whistling and somebody had a whistle and they blew it and it was like funny because but it was great. And the thing is that Van's voice at this time was at its absolute peak. Van's voice was improving in
Mhm.
the early 70s up through this, and it stayed fantastic up through the end of the 70s. So if you ask me when Van's voice was the best, I would say 71 through 79. And yes, he still has a great voice. But at this point, it could tickle my innards. So it's my number four. Also,
Okay.
we agree.
Oh, so you were talking about number,
Yeah,
obviously
I
stars.
just segued right into it.
I like that. I like the way you did that. My number, okay, now we're into the top three. So this will be interesting because I'm not sure if you know where my top three is, but my number three is St. Dominic's Preview. No bad songs. Every single song a home run. And it's got some great instrumentation on it. There's some great pedal steel on the title track. I love it. Yeah, my favorite songs are probably Listen to the Lion and the title track. But it's all good. Gypsy's good. I Will Be There is a straight blues number, but it's wonderful. Almost Independence Day has grown on me. It's about watching the fireworks over the bay on the 4th of
Right.
July. And,
Yeah.
it's just Redwood Tree. And I'm probably missing one other track. See, I'm just naming these off the top of my head. Um, and a great album cover on the steps of the church or whatever with the acoustic guitar. And it's if you haven't heard the album, it's wonderful, and it's got a touch of stream of consciousness in it. So like Almost Independence Day is fairly literal. And then, he brings in other things and, every Hank Williams Railroad and just, we'll just blurt something out. But it's wonderful. I love St. Dominic's Preview. Ted Templeman co-produced or produced this, and it has a nice warm sound to it. I really like it.
He'll be cleaning all the windows, singing songs about Edith Piaf's soul,
Yeah.
and he hear blue strings of Non Regrettant, her famous song. Very stream of consciousness that song is, but it's a great song, St. Dominic's Preview. This is my number three also, so I'm just segueing into it
All
from
right.
you now. Um, the I I learned to love the album even more um, when I got a CD player for the first time, which was fairly early, and I got it on CD, and I was listening to it on my on my stereo system, and I could hear everything on Listen to the Lion. I mean, all of the acoustic guitar that was being played. Um, and and Van goes nuts on Listen to the Lion. Uh, I knew a kid who, when he first heard Listen to the Lion playing, said, "Why is he doing all of this? Row, row, row." That's Van. Van does that. Um, and so he growls, he whoops, he does everything on that song, and it's wonderful. The song St. Dominic's Preview is another one that I absolutely love. But what got me into the album? A song that's almost like a throwaway at this point, and that's Redwood Tree.
Hmm.
Um, okay, now, why does this album have a special place in my heart? Because it's a great Van Morrison album, but also it was my first Van Morrison album. Okay, my first, 1973 Christmas. No, sorry, 1972 Christmas. Cindy and I had just started dating. And we listened to KDKB, the progressive radio station at the time. And they played a lot of this, and especially Toad Hall. He played a lot of songs from the album. And he played Redwood Tree. And I loved it. And I had Cindy listen to it. And guess what she got me as the first Christmas present, first Christmas present she ever got me? St. Dominic's Preview.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that album has always been special to me. Plus, if there's any ladies out here listening who have the hots for Van Morrison, his pants have a split crotch on the cover. Um, so I bet you didn't notice that, did you, Gene? Ha ha ha.
No, I didn't look at that.
No, no, you should. You should blow it up really big. And
Oh,
okay.
thanks. Thanks.
Uh, and
Now I got an image.
okay.
And yeah, because I don't want to get high.
Yeah, because if you all right. Anyway, so I have a feeling that our next two are going to be the same or different.
Well, the question is, are they going to be in the same order?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to have a quadfecta? No, yeah, no,
Quadfecta.
yeah,
Quadfecta.
or a quintfecta or whatever it
Good.
was. How many
Yeah, that'd
reasons?
be five.
So my number two is Moondance. His most accessible, 10 tracks, 38 minutes. It's a perfect album. Uh, I was listening to it again the other day. The bass is so good on Moondance, and I thought it was an upright bass, but Wikipedia says it's an electric bass. But man, it sure sounds like a double bass. But you have Into the Mystic and It Stoned Me, and oh my Lord, just these wonderful, wonderful songs. And it's not it it's kind of interesting because after it's as radical of a departure in some ways as Astral Weeks was from Blowing Your Mind. This album feels like another big departure because it's very sort of R&B and soul based with touches of country and folk, and but it just the lyrics are easy to understand. A song like Moondance, there's no ambiguity in a song like that. And It Stoned Me is a simple story about his childhood and having a man give him water and this type of thing, and hitching a ride on a truck, and Into the Mystic is mythical, bringing up that kind of Greek, um, what is it, the Iliad and the Odyssey and that and all that kind of thing about sailing out on the seas and finding your home. But it's got it's got pretty simple songs to wrap. I mean, you can really wrap your mind around these songs, and yet it doesn't lose any of its energy. It's just as wonderful as the albums on both sides. So I love it. Perfect album, 5 stars.
I totally agree. And it's my number two as well. However, if you would have asked me a month ago, I probably would have said it's my number one because this and the other one are constantly going back and forth for me. Okay.
Right.
What I tell people is these two albums are tied for my favorite two albums of all time. But when you asked me to put together this, I decided why do I choose Moondance over Astral Weeks? Because I mean, as less than Astral Weeks, because Moondance is not as unique. Moondance has influences. Um, and its major influence is who he was hanging out with at the time, Robbie Robertson and the band. Okay. And you listen to some of these songs like Caravan and Into the Mystic and Brand New Day. Brand New Day is I Shall Be Released. Um,
Hmm.
and so Van was trying to sound like the band. Um, and this is blasphemous because I love the band, but Van was even doing it better. He outbanned the band. Um, and so that's part. I mean, simply the fact that it is not that that it's not quite as unique. It has my favorite Van Morrison song of all time, which I'll hold off until we talk about our favorite songs. But um, couple things, and It Stoned Me was done on a normal NORML, legalization of marijuana album, and Black Crowes did a cover of this because they thought it was about smoking pot.
Mhm.
Um, so, and It Stoned Me to My Soul. Um, and Moondance is just a classic. Crazy Love. Everybody gets the lyrics wrong because the lyric sheet that was included with the album was wrong. Um, but Brian Ferry got it right. When it says, um, and she pleases me, and I go, uh, you know, just like a thief in the night. It's like like a thief in the night, and they were putting, you know, and I go right to sleep, which isn't, the lyric at all. But even, a lot of people have sung it wrong, but Van got it right. Um, Come Running, really fun song. The very last song, Glad Tidings. Earlier, Gene, you mentioned Autumn Song as being a Christmas song. Well, it's actually there's that's the second song where Van kind of mentions Christmas. In Glad Tidings, I put that on my Christmas anthologies because he said, "And the lips that you say will say Christmas, and the lips that you give will say Christmas, and they'll lay you down slow and easy, and the lips that you say will say Christmas." So so it's a Christmas song because it mentions Christmas.
So
It's a
what do you
Christmas song the same way that the
autumn song?
autumn song. Yeah, go home. You go home in the Christmas of the night.
Yeah. Um, so I know what three is. Three is a trifecta. What is a quadfecta?
It's four of the same thing.
Is that the right word?
I believe so.
We have a quadfecta. After all the differences we had, a lot of divergences, because my number one is Astral Weeks, and I almost hate to take his first major album and make it my favorite because it hints that he peaked early and never did anything better, but it's a special album. And you and I have talked about this album. It's not of time. It doesn't sound like 68. It doesn't sound like any year. It's timeless. In fact, I would say it's out of time in a way. It's out of genre. It's got folk and jazz and all sorts of influences, but it doesn't ever stay in the pocket of any one genre. So that doesn't, the production doesn't date it. And the story behind it, you can read about it. It's just he got these jazz musicians like Connie Kay and was Jay Berliner on here?
Yes, he was.
So you got these jazz guys, getting together with this guy that did Brown Eyed Girl and Rosie and Who Drove the Red Sports Car, and you get together and out comes this stream of consciousness thing, which 68 was a was the most 68 and 69 were the most radical years in music. That's when you had the next year you would have the MC5 and you would have the Stooges in
King Crimson,
68. Huh?
King Crimson in '69.
Yeah, you had 21st Century Schizoid Man. In 68, you had Blue Cheer with Summertime Blues and Iron Butterflies, Inagata Davida. And Van just didn't give a crap about what was in the wind. He just didn't care. The reason that this is my favorite album, besides the playing, besides the singing, besides the songwriting, and the reason I picked it over Moondance is because it keeps revealing. Um, I've been listening to this album for years, and it's like some kind of shapeshifter. I think I'm finally getting to the point where it starts to sound the same every time I listen to it. But that's been a 30-year, I say 30 years because I didn't listen to it in 68. I was 10 years old. But, I've been listening to it for maybe 3 decades. No, 4 decades, right?
Mhm.
How old's the album?
It's
47 years old?
yeah.
Okay. 30, yeah, 30. Let's say I've been listening to it for 35 years. The album has been like a shapeshifter. It's changed shape, it's changed sound, and it's become a different album over the years. And that is in literature, they call that reader response. I don't know what they call it in music, but the album hasn't changed. I have. I've changed. That's why it's a new album all the time. And I keep hearing different things in it as I go through the different stages of my life. And that's why I'm picking it because that would be my desert island disc because I know it'll still be a great album 10, 20 years from now.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Um, every song is fantastic. Astral Weeks, which is a song about transcending to a higher plane in another land, in another place. Um, and Then it goes into Beside You, which is a remake of a Bang Session song, but much better. Sweet Thing,
Mhm.
and I shall drive my chariots down your streets and cry, hey, I'm dynamite, and I don't know why. And then at the end, when he says, with your saint like smile, you know, then Cypress Avenue, a Van classic. The Way Young Lovers Do, a bit jazzy, something like you could almost imagine Frank Sinatra doing back then. Madam George, another classic along Cypress Avenue. Those are companion pieces, by the way. Cypress Avenue and Madam George. They both take place on Cypress Avenue. The
Hmm.
tricky thing is, who the hell is Madam George? Is Madam George a woman or a man?
I don't know.
Madam George Van? You know, his real name is George Ivan Morrison.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like it, because when Van was a boy, they would go to Madam George's and hang out and get stoned. Okay. Um, and I said, Lord have mercy, I think that it's the cops. But my favorite line on there, and Van did a great job of this when he did it at the Hollywood Bowl. And the love that loves to love, the love that loves to love, that loves to love, that loves
Mm.
to love the love. Um, and so that's a good one. That's such a great song. It took me a while to realize what a great song the follow-up was, Ballerina. And I've come to love Ballerina. It's such a beautiful,
Mm.
beautiful song. Um, you know, and then Slim Slow Slider wraps it up. And on the bonus tracks version, there's the longer version of Slim Slow Slider that kind of interestingly ends with Van singing a little prayer. You know, glory be to him, glory be to him. But the album, as you say, it can change constantly, even though when I'm listening to it, I can sing along with every word. Okay? It just means so much to me. Um, and so, uh, is there anything bad I could say about it? No, no, there's not. That's why it's my number one.
Hmm.
Um, and it's just an absolutely amazing album.
Yeah, and it bombed when it came out, and now it's considered more than a classic. It's considered influential as well.
Did I mention to you that, or did you realize that between the Bang stuff and Astral Weeks, Van did some live shows, or in Boston, and he kind of developed the Astral Week sound. So it just didn't come out of nowhere. Um, he and the what's his name, the flute player, they did stuff together, and Van was playing
Okay.
acoustic guitar,
No, I didn't
and
know that.
he changed these songs that he'd written earlier and made them fit. Some of the songs are about living there in Boston, and some of them are about living in Belfast. But yeah,
Well, I hope you
song
enjoyed this.
I hope whoever watched it enjoyed it and we didn't bore the hell out of them. I would like to leave one caveat. I'm an old man now, and this is the first time I've been doing this. And when I get a little nervous, some of the stuff that I have perfectly memorized, I can lose. And like I misquoted a couple lyrics slightly, and I don't want anybody who's like a Van Morrison aficionado getting on and putting a comment, hey, you don't know the lyrics. Yes, I do. I just said the wrong thing.
Yeah. And this
Yeah,
is for the viewers, this is Professor Gumbo's YouTube debut.
it's
So I'm
true.
very excited to present him. And yeah, it was great. And so we'll follow this up with a songs video. That's probably going to be an hour video. So yeah, if you got a short attention span, I'm sorry. That's not where we're at. But we come from a generation that listened to music
Damn
before we
straight.
watched music. Now you watch music. I'm going to be doing a video on 4 things that are different about the 21st century that one of my subscribers asked me to do. And one of them is about the ears versus the eyes. I think that's different. And I got a little pet peeve. I hope Jim will back me up on Jim will be, I still call you Jim sometimes. Sorry, Jim.
That's
Um,
okay.
the
I was Jim longer than I was Jim.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong on this before I do my video. A video can be iconic, A movie can be iconic. A band can be iconic. A song is epic.
I can see that. Yeah.
People say that song is so iconic. No, it's not. You have to see the song for it to be iconic. That's a visual term. And I think the fact
That's
that
true.
people call music iconic is just case in point of what I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm on my soapbox now, but that's my understanding of the definition of that word.
Um, and if any of your viewers who are watching this would be interested, Gene and I have discussed doing some other things like this. And my preference for another one like this next would be for us to do Bob Dylan because we both really know Dylan stuff well. But if there's nobody interested in Dylan, we'll do something else. But if you are interested in Dylan and you'd like us to do it, cast a vote for it.
Yeah, let us know. Another 56 album discography.
Exactly. Yeah, another 3 hours,
Maybe we
which
should
is
do Nick Drake. He only had 3 albums.
yeah, why not? If once you cut out where I screwed up with the numbering, you probably got it down to 2.5 hours.
I think it's going to be about 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's okay. I'll do it in parts. So anyway,
Okay.
glad to have you on the channel, and we'll schedule a time to do the top 25 songs. I'm going to do 5 honorable mentions, so make it 30, and we'll do that soon.
All right. And send me the link when you have it posted.
I will.
Stay in touch, Gene. For those of you that don't know, Gene and I were high school friends, and we were always together until he moved to Mexico. And so, you know, now he's in Mexico, and so this is like the first time we've done anything for a while.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
great to
great.
it's great to do something with you again, Gene.
You too, Jim. I love you.
Love you, guy. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Oh, by the way, darling, how old are you?
12 years old.
12 years old. That's cute. All right, we'll play Getting to Know You, please.